Why anxious partners feel ignored by dismissive avoidance. One of the most painful experiences in a relationship is feeling invisible to someone you love deeply and desperately want to feel connected to. For many anxious partners, being in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant can feel like constantly reaching out emotionally while watching the other person slowly drift further and further away. No matter how much love, effort, reassurance, or patience they often feel as though their emotional needs are being overlooked, minimized, or completely ignored. And over time, this creates a cycle of confusion, frustration, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion that can leave both partners feeling misunderstood and disconnected. The anxious partner usually enters relationships with a strong desire for emotional closeness, consistency, and reassurance because connection makes them feel safe and secure. When they love someone, they naturally want frequent communication, emotional openness, affection, and signs that the relationship is stable and important. To them, checking in regularly, talking about feelings, and spending quality time together are not demands or burdens. They are simply expressions of love and commitment that help maintain emotional security within the relationship. The dismissive avoidant, however, often experiences relationships from a completely different emotional perspective that can be difficult for the anxious partner to understand. While they may genuinely care about their partner, they tend to place a high value on independence, self-sufficiency, and emotional space, because those things help them feel safe. Instead of seeking comfort through closeness during stressful moments, they often cope by withdrawing, distracting themselves, or creating emotional distance. What feels natural and healthy to the avoidant can feel deeply painful and confusing to the anxious partner who interprets distance as rejection. This is where the misunderstanding usually begins to grow. When an anxious partner reaches out for reassurance after feeling disconnected, they are often trying to restore emotional safety and strengthen the bond between them. But when a dismissive avoidant receives that same request for closeness, they may unconsciously experience it as pressure, expectation, or a threat to their independence. As a result, the avoidant may pull back even further at the exact moment the anxious partner is desperately trying to move closer. To the anxious partner, this withdrawal feels personal and deeply hurtful because it seems to confirm their greatest fears about being abandoned or unimportant. They begin wondering why someone who claims to love them can go hours, days, or even longer without meaningful emotional connection. They may find themselves constantly checking their phone, analyzing text messages, replaying conversations, and searching for signs that something is wrong. The more uncertain they feel, the more intensely they seek reassurance from the relationship. Unfortunately, this often creates a cycle that pushes the dismissive avoidant even further away. The avoidant begins feeling overwhelmed by what they perceive as increasing emotional demands, while the anxious partner becomes increasingly distressed by the avoidant's emotional distance. Neither person is necessarily trying to hurt the other, but both are reacting to deeply rooted attachment fears that developed long before the relationship began. What starts as a desire for connection eventually turns into a painful dance where one person pursues while the other retreats. Another reason anxious partners often feel ignored by dismissive avoidance is because avoidants tend to communicate love differently than anxious individuals expect. Many dismissive avoidants believe that simply staying in the relationship should be enough evidence of their commitment and care. They may assume their partner already knows how they feel without needing constant verbal reassurance or emotional discussions. Because of this, they often underestimate how important emotional responsiveness is to someone with an anxious attachment style. Meanwhile, the anxious partner may interpret this lack of emotional expression as a lack of love altogether. When messages go unanswered, when feelings are not acknowledged, or when important conversations are avoided, the anxious partner often feels emotionally abandoned even when the avoidant has no intention of leaving. What the avoidant sees as normal space, the anxious partner experiences as emotional neglect. And what the anxious partner sees as a reasonable need for connection, the avoidant experiences as overwhelming pressure. The most painful part is that anxious partners are often not looking for perfection. They are usually not asking for constant attention every minute of every day. What they truly want is to feel emotionally seen, heard, valued, and prioritized by the person they love. When those needs consistently go unmet, they begin feeling lonely even while being in a committed relationship. Over time, this loneliness can become incredibly damaging to both the relationship and the anxious partner's self-esteem. They may start questioning their worth, wondering whether they are too needy, too emotional, or somehow asking for too much. The constant experience of feeling ignored can slowly convince them that their needs are unreasonable, when in reality, they are simply incompatible with the way the avoidant currently approaches emotional intimacy. This internal struggle often creates even more anxiety and emotional distress. At the same time, dismissive avoidants often feel misunderstood as well. Many avoidants are not intentionally trying to ignore their partner or cause emotional pain. In fact, some genuinely care deeply, but have never learned how to comfortably navigate emotional vulnerability and closeness. Their tendency to withdraw is often a protective strategy developed years earlier to avoid feeling overwhelmed, dependent, or emotionally exposed. The tragedy is that both partners are usually trying to protect themselves while unintentionally hurting each other. The anxious partner seeks closeness to feel secure, while the avoidant seeks distance to feel secure. Each person's coping strategy activates the other person's deepest fears, creating a cycle that becomes increasingly difficult to break without awareness and effort. The more this cycle continues, the more both individuals feel misunderstood and emotionally exhausted. The good news is that understanding these attachment dynamics can completely change the way both partners view the relationship. When anxious individuals recognize that avoidance is often rooted in fear rather than a lack of love, they may stop personalizing every moment of distance. And when dismissive avoidants understand how profoundly their withdrawal affects their partner, they can begin learning healthier ways to provide reassurance without feeling trapped or controlled. Awareness does not solve everything immediately, but it creates the foundation for genuine growth and deeper connection. Ultimately, anxious partners feel ignored by dismissive avoidance because they are speaking two completely different emotional languages while trying to meet the same need for safety and love. One seeks security through closeness, while the other seeks security through distance. And until both people understand what is driving these behaviors beneath the surface, they can spend years unintentionally triggering each other's deepest fears. But when understanding replaces assumptions and compassion replaces blame, even the most challenging attachment dynamics can begin moving toward a healthier and more secure connection.